Hello, my name is Pop. This video shows how to use the spreadsheet functions match and index. I am using them together because very often match and index are used in conjunction with each other. I have devoted this video to them both. The spreadsheet I am using is openoffice.org calc, but this will also work on Excel if you are using Windows or a Mac. I am presently using Linux Ubuntu. It will also work, of course, on Lotus 123 or Quattro Pro. I have prior tutorials which explain how to use vlookup function, and match and index are almost synonymous with vlookup, but there are some differences, and I want to explain the differences and the advantages. The syntax is a little bit different. In the prior video vlookup tutorial, I showed in great detail how to use vlookup, and then that video branched off into two others. One was called payroll tutorial, which showed how to look up on two different charts, one for single people, another for married people, wages and deductions. And then it would show how much money the IRS gets. I had a breakdown of the details of how that worked in 3-item lookup. That would be married or single, how many deductions, and wages. There were 3 input variables. I'm going to do the same thing in this tutorial using match and index. I'm going to start off right now by showing how vlookup works, and then in detail I'll break down how match and index works. This is vlookup, and I'm going to hit F2, and you will see that it outlines the rectangular grid over on the left. Down column A are wages, $10, $100, $200, $300. Across the top, the column headers are how many deductions, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids. The figures, of course, are fictitious, and I am using odd numbers, 0, 1, 3, $5, and so forth. And although it is fictitious, I am keeping the same general trend going. The more money you make and the fewer deductions you have, the more they take. So if you make $300 with 2 deductions, they take $21 out of your paycheck. If you make less money and have more deductions, they take less out of your paycheck. For example, if you make $10 with 4 deductions, they take 0. The syntax of vlookup is equal, then the word vlookup, no spaces, and then there are 2 parentheses, and inside of the parentheses there are 4 items. The 4 items are one thing you're looking up, comma, the grid, the other thing you're looking up, and then the so-called sort order. Here it's 1. The alternative is 0. Had I put in 0, you could only look up wages that are the exact figures in column A. You could not look up $101. You could not look up $150 or $199. But by putting in a 1, there is a fluid range. So I can go from $10 to infinity. Now, the syntax is one variable, G1, that's the wages, the chart, A1 colon through D5, then the other variable, G2, and when I go escape, it shows the answer. If I change the wages from 100 to 200, and if I change the deductions from 2 to say 3, it will show the answer. And the answer is correct. The answer is the intersection of wages and deductions. So I find wages, here's 200, and somewhere along this line is my answer. I look for 3, and here is the intersection. Fine and dandy. That's VLOOKUP and how it works. I invite you to examine the other videos. It goes into more detail. Now I'm going to go into the next screen. I have the next screens available down here. I will go to the B screen, and now I've got an index function, and it gives the same answer. You can see the formula up here in the window at the top on the input line, but I can also hit F2 and it expands the formula. This is different syntax. Instead of starting off with the question, grid, other question, sort order, this index function is grid, comma, row, comma, column, close parentheses. So I'm looking on row 3, that's the 100, and I'm looking on column 2, that's 2 deductions, and my answer is 17. Now, there's a real problem here. I have to know what row and what column. In other words, this formula just says, go look up the answer you already know. It does me very little good. It is used in conjunction with the match function. Now, what I'm going to do is put in a match formula up here, right next to the 100, and that's going to locate what row. Then I'm going to put another match function right here in G2, and it's going to look up which column. So let me open that up, and there they are. I have derived the answers, row 3, column 2. If you will look up here in the input line, you can see how the match function looks. The syntax here is, look in G1 for what wage amount you're looking for, that's the 100, and then look in a long skinny column, 1A colon through A1 colon through A5. Now I say long and skinny because I want you to use that as a memory device. A match, a thing to start a fire, is long and skinny. Let me hit F2, and you can see that column A is now outlined, A1 through A5. That's a red match. It's long and skinny. And think of a match where somebody has taken a ballpoint pen and drawn lines down the wooden shaft, and those are your rows, and you're going to find one of those rows. So G1, the 100, is somewhere on that column A. And I left the sort order 0. Let me go to the next one. This one does the exact same thing, but notice instead of going A1 through A5, it goes A1 through D1. When I hit F2, you'll see it's long and skinny also. Visually take your grid, which is rectangular, and lay a match across the top row, and also lay a match across, not across, but down the leftmost column. This match is A1 through D1, and we're looking in G2 for how many dependents, and I left sort order 0. Well, I've got my answers up there, 3 and 2. So look what I did down here in the formula. Instead of putting in 3 and 2, I referred to the answers in H1 and H2. Well, I've got 3 formulas now that I have used in order to calculate the exact same information that vlookup used with just the one vlookup formula. However, I can nest the 2 match functions inside of the index. In other words, instead of saying H1 and H2, I can just put the whole formula in there. Let me go to the next screen and we will discuss that a little bit. Now, there's something going to be wrong here. I want to show you something with vlookup. It's a deficiency in vlookup. I discussed that in the other tutorial, the vlookup tutorial. Everything's great up here only because of a coincidence. And the coincidence is that I put the number of deductions on the exact same columns that correspond to the number of the column. This is column 1, and this is column 2, and this is column 3, and this is column 4 of the grid. Now I know we're calling them A, B, C, D, but in vlookup you're not referring to them as A, B, C, D. You're referring to them as the first column, the second column, the third column, and the fourth column. Well, I compensated for doing this if I were to have 0 deductions, 1 deduction, and 2 deductions. And the way I compensated for it was just to add 2 to everything. I want to have 2 deductions. Where is that? Well, that's on the 4th column. The 4th column is labeled 2, though. So 2 plus 2 is 4. That's very confusing to me. Also, there's another problem. What if these things were not in order? What if I had like 3 deductions, 1 deduction, and 8 deductions? Oh man, nothing would work. You see what I'm saying? So here is where we're going to make some progress by using match and index. And I will now shift away again from vlookup and devote time to match and index. Now it says 3 crosshatches is the answer. No answer. Value not available. Well, that's because I have a 2 in there. Well, look here. What if I put in one of those values, 3, 1, or 8? Let's put in 8 and see what happens. Well, now it found it. And it says it's 1. $100, 8 deductions. So already you see there is an advantage to using match and index instead of vlookup. At the top here I have got 3, 1, and 8. I can actually combine my 2 charts. My charts are one for married people and one for single people. What if I put in S and 1, S and 4, and then married and 6? They don't have to be in any kind of order. Well, no answer is available. But what if I change this now to married and 6. Son of a gun, it works. This is quite amazing. Now, to clean up all of this, what I should do is combine the 3 separate functions, the 3 separate formulas into one. Here where it says H1, I'm going to erase H1, and I'm going to just write this whole formula. And then here where it says H2, I'm going to erase H2, and I'm going to write this formula. So let's try that. I will go F2, and oops, I will go F2, erase H1, put in the word match, open parentheses, G1, comma, what's the long skinny thing? A1 through A5, comma, and I'm going to go sort order 1, close parentheses. Now leave my comma, get rid of H2, match, open parentheses, G2, that's the number of deductions, comma, long skinny match A1 through D1, comma, sort order 0, close parentheses, enter. Let's try it out. Here is 100. Let's change that to 200. And instead of M6, let's go to S4. 11. All right. Here's S4, and here's 200. Let me see if I did the fluid range of dollar amounts correctly. We'll go 249. Sure enough, 249 is less than 300, so we'll go with the deduction on 200. I can erase these formulas. This one says the answer is not available. Well, that's because on this formula I still have the 0. I'm going to change it to 1. Now it works. Down here I had 0, so I can't look up something across the top that says single with 1.5 deductions. There's no such thing. I'm going to erase these, and I can also erase the vlookup. Now I have a very, very versatile formula. It's not too terribly complex. It's index, whole grid, and then the 2 different matches. Matches are long and skinny. The first one is always looking down a column for the row. Match, wages, down the column, sort order, fluid. Match, deductions, long skinny horizontal, and in this one I left it 0. 2 parentheses. This is an extremely versatile pair of functions that are used in conjunction with each other. My name is Pop, and I have made a whole bunch of YouTube tutorials, not just on spreadsheets, but other things also. I thank you very much for watching this, and I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I will continue to make additional YouTube tutorials. I like going very, very slow and explaining things in great detail. I noticed that some of the tutorials on spreadsheets zip through a subject so fast that nobody can hardly see it. You can, of course, rewind those things and watch them again and again, but I think it's better to take your time. I thank you very much.